Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let's look at 10 ways you can personalize your Mac. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. There are many ways to customize the look of macOS so your Mac can look different than everybody else's. To start, let's go into System Preferences and then General. And the easiest and most obvious way to personalize things is to switch between light and dark. A lot of Mac users still just use light as the default, and it's how we're used to seeing our Macs. But you can switch to dark mode, and then backgrounds will turn black with white writing on them, and other elements will change. You can also select Auto so that it's light during the day and dark at night. Now right under that you've got Accent Color and Highlight Color. So usually this is set to the multicolor setting here, and this allows each app to determine its own accent and highlight color. For instance, here we have numbers and we can see that's green here. We've got green accents and highlights. And in Pages it's orange here, both accents and highlights. But if we were to set a system color for that, like say blue, then all of the apps abandon their default and turn blue. So here we've got blue highlights in Pages and blue highlights in Numbers. Notice you can have your highlight color be something different. So for instance I can go with a green highlight here, and you can see I've got a green highlight but the accents are still blue. If I set the accent color to match the app, I can have the highlight color match the app as well, or I can have the highlight color be something specific. Now right underneath this you'll see Allow Wallpaper Tinting in Windows. But there's a stronger setting for the same thing if you go into Accessibility and then Display. And here if you use Reduce Transparency it completely removes any tinting of the windows. So now you can see how the white of the menu bar and the white of the windows and toolbars is absolute. Now you can go a step further than that and say Increase Contrast. And this gives your Mac a really cool retro look that affects pretty much all apps. Also there are a couple other settings here you may want to check out, like changing the menu bar size to large and show toolbar button shape. So see these toolbar buttons here? If I select that you can see outlines around the buttons. Now let's just look at the desktop icons here. I've got a few icons here. I usually like to keep this clean, but you may have a bunch here. There are a lot of things that you can do to customize how this looks. And if you have some icons on your desktop, then it really is going to dominate the look of your Mac. You're going to see them all the time. So if you go in Finder to View and then Show View Options, then you can change the icon size to something else. So you can make much larger icons if you want, or smaller ones. You can also change the spacing. You also have the ability to change the text size, and the most dramatic change is going from label position on the bottom to label position on the right, like that. Another thing you could do is turn Show Item Info on, and then you get things like the dimensions of images and the length of sounds and videos. You also could turn on Stacks like this, and this will group like items together, and you could open up the stacks like that. So even if you have many or even dozens of items on your desktop, they'll be grouped together in stacks and you won't have as many of them. You could go to View Group Stacks By and change it to something else, like for instance Date Created, and it'll group things together in things like today or by year, yesterday, that kind of thing. You can also customize the icon of anything on the desktop. Let's create a new folder on the desktop, and we can customize that folder to have a different icon than the standard folder thing. Just do Command I to get info, and then you could drag and drop an image like this one right in there, and it should change to match that icon. To remove it you can select and just hit the delete key on your keyboard and it goes back to the default. If for some reason you can't drag and drop an icon there, a handy trick is to double click it to open it up in Preview. Command A to select all, Command C to copy. Then go to the icon here and select it, and then do Command V to paste. And this will actually paste the image itself, not the file. So it works more often. And you can see here I've got a nice icon here for this folder, different than the standard one. You can do the same thing to put apps on your desktop if you want using any icon. So in the Finder, go to the Applications folder, and then let's select the app that you want to put on the desktop, and let's drag it there. Now just by dragging something out of the Applications folder it's going to give you this little curly arrow there which creates an alias. So we'll drop that alias there, the applications is still in the applications folder. This is just a alias or shortcut to it. So if we want to change the icon for this, we can do it the same way. Do Command I and let's add this custom icon here to it. And now we have the music app shown here on the desktop, but it's a custom icon. Unfortunately, you can't add these to the dock. If I were to drag this down to the dock here, it would appear just as the standard music icon. There's no good way to customize the icons in the dock. But you can do other things with the dock. Of course, you can customize the order that things are in, dragging the icons back and forth. You can drag an icon away if you want to remove it. You can go back to the applications folder here and add any app that you want to the dock. So you can customize the dock to fit your needs, have your most commonly accessed apps and have them grouped together. And you can also go to System Preferences and then Dock and Menu Bar. Select Dock and Menu Bar here and you could change the dock size. So make them smaller or larger. They'll only go up to the size that they'll all fit in. You could have magnification turned on. So as you move your mouse over the dock it does that. And if you want to go to an extreme you can position the dock on the left or the right side of the screen. So now it'll appear here on the right, which will look different than most Mac users. Another place you can customize things is the Notification Center. On the right here you'll see the different widgets here. If you go down to the bottom you can edit widgets and then you can select the widgets that you want to add and then move these around and highly customize how Notification Center works. So if you haven't had the chance, play around with this and add widgets that you want that you'll find useful here. Most of the time when people say that the widgets in Notification Center aren't useful, they haven't taken the time to customize them to actually make them useful for what you want to see. You could also use third-party apps like this one right here to add different things. Like this one will allow you to add your photos, specific photos, unlike the Photos widget here which will add things like memories and featured photos. Just search for Notification Center widgets in the App Store. Now you can also customize the buttons here at the top right and Control Center. So this is Control Center. You can click here and bring this up. If you go to System Preferences and then Dock and Menu Bar, then Control Center is under here and you can look at each one of these and decide which ones are shown in the menu bar, which ones are shown in Control Center like these. You can add those to it. And you could also drag and drop directly from here. So for instance if I wanted to add AirDrop to the menu bar I could. And then I can hold the Command key down and drag these around left and right or down and away to get rid of them. And also you've got the clock here at the upper right. You can access that by going to Clock here and then you can have it do different things like show or hide the date, have it be an analog clock that takes up less space and get that looking just like you want. Now not every customization has to be visual. If you go into System Preferences and then to Sound, then you can under Sound Effects change the alert sound and the variety that come with your Mac. But you could also add your own custom sounds here. The way to do that is in the Finder you want to go, hold the Option key down so you can go to Library and then go down to Sounds. And you can see here I've added 3 sounds. The format that works best is the AIFF format. Any sound app should allow you to export to that. Although sometimes M4A or MP3 sounds will work. It depends what's actually contained inside the file since those file types can contain lots of different types of compression. But you can see I've got these 3 in here and in System Preferences under Sound I have them listed. There's one right there. Now the one big customization you're probably surprised I haven't mentioned yet is to change the desktop wallpaper. Of course you could do that by going into System Preferences and then Desktop and Screensaver. And under Desktop here you can set this to anything you want. You can actually drag and drop an image right into here or you can select from the many desktop pictures that Apple includes. You can also select a solid color or click here to select a custom color. You can select from your photos. So you can have a photo like that. If you've selected something that's a group like here under Photos Favorites you can actually have it do things like change the picture every so often and have it do it in a sequential or random order. And you can also include folders here. So if you have a folder that has some pictures in it And I do here in the Finder, under miscellaneous, there's a bunch of images. I could drag and drop that here and now you can see those appear here. And I could select one of these or have it set to change the picture. So you can literally make the desktop background anything that you want. And note that since things like the menu bar typically are tinted with the background, that's really going to do more than just be the picture you've got. It's going to change the whole look of everything. So you can see how it changes the menu bar for what I have selected. Now while we're here, here's one bonus one. You can set the screensaver. So you don't really need a screensaver, but it's a nice way to customize your Mac to make it look a little different. You can set it to how quickly it goes on and then you can choose one of the ones here. It's well known now that there's a bug in the early versions of Monterey that a lot of these Photos ones don't work. But once they're working again in a future version, you could actually have one of these that shows your own photos. But there's some really interesting ones here, including the Monterey one, which you could see working right here, which is actually going to use the Monterey background and it's an animated version of it. There's also the new Hello one that is part of macOS Monterey. And then all sorts of ones that you've probably seen before like Drift and Flurry and Shell and all of these others. And one thing I recently learned is that when you're using one of these with that show clock option turned on, the location of the clock actually changes. It moves around with 12 noon being at the top of the screen and midnight being at the bottom of the screen. So here at 9:42 a.m. it's to the top left. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to personalize your Mac. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.